the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump.
Planning for a flurry of executive orders.
Several focus on immigration and the southern border.
Some federal employees are being told to stay home and prepare to be fired.
Establishing the Department of Government Efficiency.
President Donald Trump's executive orders are facing tough scrutiny in courtrooms across the country.
Attorney Skye Perryman, she's also president and CEO of Democracy Forward. That's a progressive legal organization that has sued the Trump administration.
Our organization, Democracy Forward, is working with so many others to be able to read and respond to the executive orders as early as day one.
Democracy Forward has been preparing for months, if not years, to be ready to respond for this moment.
The courts are really the front line right now. This administration is trying to move incredibly fast and in a very harmful direction.
There have been over 125 different lawsuits that have been filed by Democratic attorney generals, civil rights groups, Democracy Forward.
We've had folks working through the night to put together complaints and motions for emergency relief.
If outside people are providing input on how the government serves Americans, we have to know what they're doing.
We have a number of cases that we have filed to hold the administration accountable to the law.
The executive does not get to escape a court order.
To work on something, whether it's in a case at the United States Supreme Court or organizing locally, it is a way to not lose hope.
It was a pretty amazing experience to hear from folks across the country that said, you know, I have funding for my program today because of what you and your team did.
We've seen that success in the court so far on behalf of DF and our plaintiffs.
You have demonstrated that it is possible to stop at least some of this, and that is incredibly important.
At Democracy Forward, we have always been about going where we are needed and about taking on the hardest fights. We hear every single day from people across this country, people that don't consider themselves political, that may have never been inside of a courtroom, that are reaching out, asking what they can do in this time. We hear from people on opposite sides of the aisle. We hear from educators and veterans. We hear from parents and students and young people who are all wanting to make sure that this country, that the best of this country and its people are able to move forward together. So that gives me great hope. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Skye Perryman, and I am the president and CEO of Democracy Forward. And on behalf of our entire team at Democracy Forward, I want to thank everyone that is joining us for tonight's live stream as we discuss our path ahead from these first 100 days of the Trump-Vance administration. And I also want to thank our fantastic speakers who are going to be part of this event to process all of this with us. Tonight, we are going to have Congressman Glenn Ivey. We're going to have Sean Fediplace from the Main Street Alliance, and we are going to have Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison all joining us to share their thoughts on what has been happening, how we are pushing back, finding courage in these critical times, and to help us chart the path forward. To kick us off, I wanted to set the stage for where we are and where we are going. Over the past 100 days, in large cities and small towns, in red states and blue states, among older Americans and younger ones, the American people have felt what this Trump-Vance Musk agenda is trying to achieve. People across this country have woken up each morning to anxiety and confusion. We have heard people call us wondering if Meals on Wheels is going to be able to deliver services, if their child care or Head Start Center is going to be open, if our public health authorities will be able to provide information to us about pandemics and infectious diseases, if Elon Musk and a band of 19-year-olds will have access to our most personal and private data, if governmental and immigration officials are going to raid houses of worship or their schools, or if children would experience a whitewash of history that eliminates even the mention of race and racism from our curricula, and so much more. All of this chaos and confusion, the shock and awe approach that the administration is pursuing is the point. It follows from a well-known playbook that is aimed at making people feel alone, scared, isolated, and defeated. It is an attempt at an autocratic power grab to make it appear as if the die has already been cast, as if there's nothing that anyone can be, that there's nothing that anyone can do, and that the only thing that one can do is to comply and be silent. But tonight we have thousands of people on this event who are here, you are here, and you are telling me that this administration is wrong, that there is hope, that in this country we do not like power grabs, we don't like kings, and we certainly don't like being silent. We know that in this country, we, the people, do have power, and that when we come together in community, even against long odds, and even in hard and scary times, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. So we are so honored that you're spending your evening with us here today, and that you're going to be part of this journey forward for the American people. Since January, more than 200 lawsuits have been filed against the Trump administration's actions. And that is not just that people like filing lawsuits. It is because the Trump administration has acted harmfully and unlawfully, trying to rewrite the Constitution with the stroke of a pen, trying to deprive people of their rights. At Democracy Forward alone, we have filed over 60 legal actions as of today and have made hundreds of court filings across the country. We've initiated more than 80 investigations. We have requested hundreds and thousands of records, and our work has resulted in significant victories that directly affect and safeguard Americans from harmful policies. And you, many of you, have been with us for those, and we thank you so much. The legal fight is intensifying. There are going to be new lawsuits and rulings emerging around the clock. And this is because of how the Trump administration is functioning. We've had at least 100 court rulings to date overall that have paused or stopped some of the administration's initiatives. The administration has been losing in court before judges that were appointed by Democratic presidents, judges that were appointed before Republican presidents, and judges that were appointed by President Trump himself. The judicial system has been an important frontline and a bulwark to protect our freedoms and our rights, and it will continue to be. But as the Trump administration continues to seek to undermine the rule of law, to threaten lawyers and judges in this country, it is going to be important that the people also push back, and you have been. We are seeing, and it will take communities across the country using our voices to demand what is right, advocating for change, being out in the public square. It is up to all of us to move our democracy forward and to create the present and the future that we and our children and our communities and our families deserve. The harmful and unlawful actions of the Trump administration and far-right policymakers, the flood of news stories, the plans detailed by extremists in Project 2025, of course, are designed to make us feel overwhelmed and angry and disconnected. And as we move beyond these first 100 shock and awe days of the Trump administration, we, the people, know that we can defy this hopelessness and that we can create and strengthen community and build courage together. And so at Democracy Forward, you are going to see us in court every single day on behalf of people and communities. But you are also going to see us more in places like this, in town halls, in gatherings, in communities large and small, because building community is going to be so much a part of what we have to do as we move beyond the 100 days. We have to refuse to be isolated and alone, and we have to create the conditions for courage, and community creates that. So you're going to feel that from us. You're going to see that from us. We want to be right there with you as we chart this road ahead. And we'll also continue fighting in the courts for people and communities because we know that is just so incredibly important. But tonight is about our community. It's about finding community with one another. It's about feeling community with one another. And it is about celebrating courage. And so it is really my honor to get to be joined tonight by people who are doing the work, who are showing up with courage every day, and more importantly, who are working with others who are showing up with courage and community every day. We're going to talk about what we've experienced, how we're moving beyond these 100 days, and what the plan is for the path forward. And so with that, let's move on to our program. Is Congressman Ivey on?
I am. How are you?
Amazing. Thank you, my friend. Okay, everyone. Congressman Glenn Ivey is a congressman from Maryland. He is a champion of all things people and democracy and has been really a special champion of the Americans in this country who serve all of us. Our nonpartisan civil servants and public servants. We were just together earlier today on the steps of the Capitol for a press conference about the threats to the civil service and about how we're going to move forward. And Congressman, you've been such a dedicated advocate for the federal workforce, for the people of Maryland, but really for all of us in this country who rely on a government that is supposed to work for the people. So I really thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be part of this fight, and it's an honor to be on the presentation here with you. And I want to repeat what I said at the press conference today, which is, thank you for the outstanding job that you're doing. I think, from the standpoint of things that a lawyer can accomplish, I mean, you've just had an incredible year. And we're only 100 days in, I guess. You're having a much better 100 days than the Trump administration is having. I'll say it that way.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're doing great work in court. I don't know how I think it's like 200 cases that have been filed or something. And I know you haven't filed all of them, but you and your team have done like the heavy lifting on a lot of those. And you're really to be commended. It's hard to do that much great work. And we know it's great work because you're winning so much. It's really been great. And it's been critical really to preserving the democracy. I think if he hadn't had the judiciary bumper or block on some of the stuff that he's trying to do, who knows where he might be, because even with you there and with the judiciary doing what it's doing, he's had a devastating impact on already. So thank you for all the work that you've done.
Well, listen, thank you, Congressman Ivey, also an attorney before you were in Congress. So we appreciate that. And of course, our team at Democracy Forward, I just want to shout them out because they are working around the clock most days to get into court. Today, we had a great victory. We had preserved and secured people's private data at Social Security that Elon Musk and Doge had been trying to get themselves into. Had a court order. The government wanted an appellate court to get rid of that court order, and the appellate court did not today. So people's data, at least at Social Security, is secure, and we're going to continue to fight through the courts on that. And that's just, what happened just since I saw you this afternoon. And then also, of course, a many thanks to our partners, the attorneys across the country that are doing such important work from other organizations and our state AGs. And we're going to have AG Ellison on later tonight to talk about that. I wanted to kind of open it up as we're on this, having this discussion, because you really have been such a champion for what we call the civil service in this country, the federal workers that they work in every single state, not just in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. They're in every single state and really doing the work of the people. And the civil service has been targeted by President Trump, by Elon Musk, by this administration. You've been gathering civil servants and workers together, and you've been listening to the impact that this has had on them and their families. Could you talk and share a little bit about that on our town hall tonight?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, the civil service has been one of the really outstanding hallmarks of American democracy. We went towards a civil service that was based on merit, moved away from, the political aspects of it and the payoffs of hiring and the loyalty oaths and all of that stuff like a century ago. And I think it led to us having such an effective, civil service that did so much outstanding work for the American people and continues to do so. That's why it's so devastating to have, the Trump administration launch this war on civil servants and, push people out. We've had tens of thousands of people pushed out of their jobs, even people who've been doing, outstanding work. The vast majority of the people who've had to leave, we have been getting outstanding evaluations for years and years and years. And they've been doing the work that the American people need to be done well. So like today at our press conference, I talked about the medical side, the clinical trials of, people trying to find cures for Alzheimer's and cancer and the like. But, it happens across the board. We've got people in my district, for example, we did a day where we went to the local Social Security office and, now people are having trouble getting in there and getting the help that they need just because they're understaffed and they can't be open all day, every day like they had been before. And you even have trouble reaching them on the phone. And, there are variations of that, where we're seeing problems, whether it's inspectors for meat or air or water, just anything you can think of. The federal government has had a hand in making our lives better. And, he's undercut all of that. And he's done it in a way that he's saying about waste, fraud, and abuse, but it's had nothing to do with that. And we know that because the first thing he did was fire the 18 watchdogs who were in charge of going after waste, fraud, and abuse. And he's done a lot of these across the board cuts, like all probationary employees in a particular department sort of thing, even though some of the people are doing great. Jaden Daniels is the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. He's a first-year guy. I guess technically he'd be on probation in football. They're saying they should cut the rookie of the year under the way they're approaching it. And of course, that doesn't make any sense. We've got a lot of talent there. So it's been difficult to watch. It's had a devastating impact on these people's lives. It's totally unfair. It's really unfair, and it treats them in the wrong way. You had people who had signed up to start jobs in the federal civil service, had quit jobs they'd had before, sold their houses, and they were moving to the DC area, only to find out that they weren't going to be able to get the job anymore, and so they're kind of left betwixt and between. So it's been terrible from the standpoint of the impact on civil servants, and terrible from the standpoint of the impact on the services that the American people are no longer going to get in the way that they used to get them.
Well, and our friends at the Partnership for Public Service did a poll and and then there have been other polls that have been released over time, and they've always said through lots of time that the vast majority, I think it's something like almost over 90%, I think I mentioned this earlier today when we were at the Capitol, of people in this country expect that our federal workers are going to be hired and promoted, and if they're terminated, but on the basis of their merit. And on the basis of merit, not on the basis of political loyalty or cronyism. And I think it seems like one of the biggest pieces of misinformation that this administration is seeking to further out there is that somehow DOJ and what's happening has to do with merit. And what you're saying is, in fact, it's just the opposite, right? That the civil servants that you're meeting with and seeing, these are people that have been fired for no reason at all, including people who are getting exceptional performance, right? And some, like you said, the rookies of the year.
Yeah. I mean, so I've had people come up to me. We had a job fair to try and help people get new jobs who've been pushed out of the federal government. One lady came up to me, and I think she was a PhD in, I think it was neurobiology, neurochemistry, I think it was. But, she was doing work for the federal government, trying to make a difference. She was working on the measles vaccine, for example. And, we have others doing great work, Alzheimer's, and those sorts of things. And, on the other part of it, we've got NASA Goddard, one of the installations in our district, doing great work from the standpoint of developing science, cybersecurity, to fight back so we don't have people attacking our utility systems and computer systems from overseas. We've got adversaries who have bad intentions with respect to the United States. We've got to make sure we've got the talent and the capability to fend that off. Same thing with some of the issues with respect to us going into space. China's going to get ahead of us, I think, if we're not careful about that. But we're pushing people out who are outstanding scientists. They're getting recruited by other countries to come there, including China. And for the young ones coming up in the new pipeline, they're looking and seeing, what they thought they were going to try and go into work for the federal government because it was such a great track where you had a chance to do great work on behalf of the American people, public service, and the chance to feel really good about it at the same time. But they're not seeing that path anymore. So some of them are having to start their careers now in Australia or Europe or other places. So we're losing a lot of talent, and it's really going to hurt us in the long run.
Well, okay, so tonight's about people that are tuning in. They want to do something, and we're going to talk a lot about moving the path forward. But one thing that everybody can know and do is to master the facts here, right? Public servants and civil servants work in all 50 states, and they they are under the system that has been in place for decades, for the last century. They're promoted and hired based on merit, not based on cronyism. And now we're seeing that being attacked. And we have to make sure that we're, representing that and really protecting our civil service. I want to let everyone know that's tuning in. Many of you are familiar with our work, but you can check out a website called civilservicestrong.org. And it's a website that has a range of resources for people who are public servants or people who want to support our public servants. And we're seeing such an outpouring of support from across the country. And thank you, Congressman, for what you've done there. I wanted to bring you just a minute. You and I talked about the last time we were together, some of the funding freezes that the administration has tried to implement. Now, we've been able to block a lot of those in court, and the national funding freeze we were able to block, within hours, and that stayed. But you've heard from your constituents and from people in your community about what these dollars are. This isn't just it's not a funding freeze, really a services freeze. Can you talk a bit about why this funding? I mean, it's for everything from Meals on Wheels to Head Start to so many things that we all rely on, that Congress has approved. Why that funding is so important for people in the community that you represent, but also for the American people across the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to have a devastating impact. And this is coupled with some of the cuts that have been made towards the civil service. But, they're trying to cut, for example, $881 billion out of Medicaid. And that's, a fund that provides health care and services primarily for children, the elderly, for the disabled. That's the way they get their health care services. And it's, to cut that, I think really is going to leave many of them adrift. And especially in red and rural districts, many of them will just be in healthcare deserts because the local hospitals won't be able to stay open financially. You got people driving 100 and 200 miles to get to their doctor that they used to, be able to see in their neighborhood and community. And that's, the cuts are across the board. School lunches is another one. You mentioned Meals on Wheels. That's another one. They're just looking to cut things. It's astonishing the types of cuts they're looking to make. And then with respect to some of these federal employees and federal contractors, some of these federal contractors that do work for the federal government and have done a great job aren't getting paid. They're just refusing to pay them, even though they've already done the work. And what that means is the contractor who had employees that actually did the work, he doesn't get the money so he can pay the employees. So that's another bad ripple effect that puts people out of work because eventually they have to lay them off. And that's on the contracting side. On the grant side, similar kinds of things. I mean, when they cut USAID, which provided a lot of grants and support overseas, right. I saw one estimate that 1.6 million people are going to die in the next year because of these cuts.
And our farmers. Now we're litigating, we're in court, and some of our partners are in court on USAID. But if something doesn't stop this, right, even our own domestic farmers will lose so much of their livelihoods because they produce so many things that the USAID also uses. So it's Americans at home and abroad that are really affected. Well, we're pleased that we've been able to block some of them in the courts, but we know the courts are not a silver bullet, and it's going to take people really talking to your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, right, and making sure that Congress is doing its job. And I know you've been pushing for that, and we'll encourage everybody here later on tonight to continue to be using their voices. So we've been talking about the shock and awe and the chaos. But at Democracy Forward, we've really been finding and really focusing on courage. And you've been in these communities, you've been talking to people, you're constantly busy. Can you talk about kind of what community building and coming together can mean in this moment? And then I'm going to go ahead and ask you the other thing, which is we just want to know for you, because we're looking at how we get beyond, we're moving beyond the 100 days. Like, how are we moving forward together? What gives you hope on the path as you look forward? Where are you seeing courage? What do you want people? There's thousands of people tuning in. What do you want folks to know tonight as everyone's trying to process and figure out how to move forward?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think the tide is turning, frankly, on the Trump administration. They got off to a fast start. There's no question about that. You and the lawyers taking things to court, I think, slowed that down and have, stalled a lot of it out. But as a lot of the reality of these cuts and changes start to hit the American people, many of the folks that supported him, especially the independents, are starting to have buyer's remorse. And we had Democrats that crossed over and voted for him too. And I think they're starting to say, wait a second. I thought he said he was going to make the economy better, but the economy's gotten worse because of this insane approach to tariffs that he's taken. My stocks have gone down. My business is in trouble. I'm having trouble, buying things at the grocery store. All these things are starting to impact. And the real impact is probably about 2 or 3 months off because, as the inventories that came through before the tariffs hit run out, then they're going to have to start actually spending the extra 140-something% on the tariffed goods from China to bring them here to the United States.
And they're trying to hide that real cost, but we can do that. Okay. So what do you want everybody, they care, they're tuned in. This is how they're spending their evening. What do you want before I let you go? Because we've got to talk with Sean at Main Street Alliance. Where, Congressman Ivey, what do you want people to do? What's one thing they can do? What do you encourage people that come up to you and say, what do we do as we're moving beyond the 100 days?
Be engaged, especially if you live in a red state or a purple jurisdiction. Make sure you're reaching out to your elected officials, your senators, your members of Congress. And then even if you don't live in a red district, you can go to one. I mean, we've got members of Congress now who've gone to do town halls in Republican districts because the Republicans are afraid to do those. I just went to join Congressman Bobby Scott and Greg Meeks in a Republican district in the Norfolk, Virginia area. Go do those, or go reach out to those members and make sure you're pushing that piece of it.
Okay, you heard it here, everybody. Congressman Ivey's telling you to reach out to your member of Congress to put your people to work, right? To reach out and demand more, right?
I am, and let me say this too: support groups like Democracy Forward. These things. They don't run on oil, air and water, so if you can provide assistance, whether it's talent, time, or treasure, pitch in and make sure you're pitching in to help those kinds of groups that are really making a difference right now.
That sounds good. And Congressman Ivey, one thing I've recently heard, this is just unbelievable to me because I'm from my hometown. Our congressman hadn't been doing town halls, and then people are saying they're calling his office and it goes to voicemail. I grew up in a red community. So if people are doing that and they just can't get in touch with anybody, can they reach out to you and tell you what district they live in and who they're trying to get in touch with, and maybe you can go help flag some of these people down? I'm being serious.
Yeah, I'm serious too. I mean, in most states, we've got people who are Democrats who are going to red districts and holding town hall meetings. Ro Khanna, for example, he's based in Silicon Valley. He did some in California. He got invited to come out to Nebraska, and he did one there over the weekend. So you've got members who are either nearby or going to be willing to come. Just reach out and let us know, and we'll try and get somebody out there. And you can host your own things too.
Well, that's what I'm encouraging. We're going to start doing some of that. But thank you for joining our virtual town hall tonight. And thank you for all the work you're doing in this moment. And everybody that's tuning in, you heard it here. Congressman Glenn Ivey, if you can't get in touch with your representative, you can let him know. I'm sure he'd be happy to know. But he wants you to stay engaged, use your voice. Don't think that it doesn't matter. I mean, you're telling us it does matter when you all hear from people, that it matters.
Now's the time it matters the most.
Now's the time it matters the most. Okay, that's great to know. I think thank you, Congressman. We're going to bring Sean Fettiplace up from Main Street Alliance. Main Street Alliance is a tremendous partner of our team at Democracy Forward, but of so many people across the country. Sean, I'm going to let you tell everybody what Main Street Alliance is, but I'll just say, we've done a lot at Democracy Forward and with you all to make sure that the voices of small business owners across the country are heard. You're going to correct me on the numbers, but I think the last time we talked about this, you all educated me. It's about 99% of businesses across this country are small businesses, and small businesses keep our economy moving, and of course are so important. And so we're so grateful that you've made time tonight to be here for Main Street Alliance. And I'd like to just start off by having you share with folks that are tuning in a little bit about the work of Main Street Alliance.
Thanks, Skye, and thanks for the work for Democracy Forward. So my name is Sean Fettiplace. I'm the National Campaigns Director for MSA, and we work to champion Main Street voices to create a thriving economy. We have about 30,000 members nationwide. I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin, but we have staff all across the country. And we're working really hard to make sure that our members' voices are heard, that they are able to tell their story, and that we're able to fight back against the gross, both, I would say, incompetence, but also malicious intent of the Trump administration. So just really excited to be able to talk with you here and be able to share the story about the work that we do.
Well, that's awesome. And so, folks, you can find out about Main Street Alliance. I know, Sean, you'll say this throughout, but how people can get engaged with you all, because we've got a lot of people that want to find places to plug in, which is why we have you here. Why don't you want to talk to us a little bit about what Main Street Alliance and small business owners and small businesses across the country have really seen the impact of this first 100 days? What are people experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the term is shock and awe. When the administration took office, the federal freeze was really the first big fight. We've worked with Democracy Forward for years, I would say, on very important issues. Obviously, the stakes and the scale of what's been happening over the last couple of months has been quite high. And on the federal freeze, I right away heard from Head Starts. I heard from USDA folks. I heard from members who were declarants in some of these cases that had been personally cut off from funding that was designed to help support small businesses making science investments and science research. And, it was very widespread, and it became very quickly obvious how widespread the effects were. And so I would say the federal freeze was number one. The layoffs also, the legal layoffs, the way it was done through DOGE, that greatly impacted access to resources, access to, essential services from federal agencies. And then ultimately, recently, there was a case where folks who run the Emergency Injury to Disaster Loan Program, the SBA, basically the whole office was laid off. And we have members, the EIDL program, it's $400 billion that was lent during COVID to help business owners get through the pandemic. And there are people now who are deciding to close their businesses for whatever reason. They can't get a hold of anybody because there's nobody left working at the agency that deals with those products. So I think you're going to see a lot of chaos. You're going to see a lot of difficulties for business owners as a result of the actions of the administration.
Okay, so tell us, so you guys were with us. I mean, you've been with us so much in court, but you were with us on that first case that we had to file to stop the national funding freeze, which we know just helped, so many people and businesses. But tell us a little bit about what Main Street Alliance, what you and other organizations, nonprofit organizations, are doing to respond in this moment. People want to know, what do we do? How can someone that's not a member of Congress help in this moment? So what are the kinds of things Main Street Alliance is doing that people can plug into? Yeah.
There's two things, sue and organize. Those are the two kind of main things. And obviously we can file legal action, and we greatly appreciate the work of Democracy Forward to help be our legal representation to do so. In terms of organizing, we have a call tomorrow with Senator Maria Cantwell talking about the tariff issue. That's really an issue that we're working on pretty heavily at the moment. And that is, again, a product of, frankly, Congress should have never given the president the power in the first place to do those things, and they should take that power back. And I think this is all really, there's a through line of all this, which is the presidency is not a king. The presidency is one part of our three-branch system. There's checks and balances for a reason. And, we should make sure that our courts and that our Congress are doing their job to hold the president accountable. So we, are launching 1,000 Main Streets next week. We are working to organize in communities all across the country, in suburban, rural, and urban communities. And we have champions, local small business champions, who are helping to lead that work. So definitely encourage folks to find out more at mainstreetalliance.org. But contact your member of Congress, call them, write them, tweet at them, We just hosted a town hall with Congressman Mark Pocan in Derrick Van Orden's district. We had about over 300 people there. And that's, again, to Congressman Glenn Ivey and your point, really make sure that you're showing up in these places where they can feel their feet to the fire by their voters.
Okay, so what is it called? 1,000 Main Streets. That sounds so inspiring. So if folks are tuning in and you want to know how to plug into that, you go to mainstreetalliance.org. You can learn more. And then you're also telling us from your perspective, and you're not in Congress, you're working, with communities across the country, that you've seen the impact of people reaching out and making their voices heard. Because I think that's what people want to know, is that it's not in vain, that they feel like they're just yelling into a void. And we do know that this impact matters. It sounds like that's been your experience too.
Yeah. And I think that you're seeing that already. On the tariff issue, Senator McConnell, Senator Rand Paul, people who I have nothing in common with and probably would never be working with, it's good to see some progress on that. There needs to be a lot more. There needs to be a lot more by House Republicans, by Senate Republicans, to hold the president accountable. And it's on all of us to make sure that happens. So ultimately, that's both like writing, calling, but also, frankly, using that media megaphone to get your voice out to a much broader audience of people who don't always already agree with you. I think often advocates like the safe spaces of hanging out with people who already share their values. And that's great. And it's great to power build, and it's great to do that. But it's more important that you reach out to those folks who maybe voted for Trump, honestly, and are disaffected and feel like he lied to them, because he did. And ultimately hold them accountable in terms of making sure that we have, a federal workforce that can meet the needs of our country, that we have programs. I mean, honestly, over the course of the last 30, 40 years, jobs that traditionally were government jobs got pushed into the private sector through nonprofits. And they provide extremely important services in these communities. Here in Wisconsin, where I live, AmeriCorps, they just all got laid off. And it's absolutely troubling what that's going to mean for local communities. And so I would say, talk to your neighbors, make sure your members of Congress know how you feel, and get the biggest megaphone you possibly can.
That's great. And that's like writing op-eds, it's being on social media, and you guys can help with that. And we can too at Democracy Forward. So if you're tuning in tonight and you don't have those tools, write one of our organizations. We help people amplify their voice all the time. And the 1,000 Main Streets sounds really great. And I know some small business owners I'm going to be asking if they're doing it. If they're not, you're going to get some new members, because that sounds great. So we're tonight here, Sean, to sort of talk about, we've seen the first 100 days. We know the playbook was shock and awe. You helped us in so many ways show up and be able to get into court quickly. We're going to continue to do that at Democracy Forward. People are, starting to make their voices heard in the streets even. And then, of course, with Congress. And I think Congressman Ivey said, we're seeing the tide turn. Dahlia Lithwick said that today in her column. We saw, ABC News over the weekend. We see these approval ratings are plummeting. And we're also seeing that Americans, and which I think all of us have known, but they really do care, not just about the economy and the bottom line, but they also care about what it means to be an American and about our system and our process. And you see in the cases like at Democracy Forward, where we're representing people who have been removed from the country without any process at all, you see Americans of all stripes across ideological lines saying, this is just not right. I mean, even Joe Rogan's come out and said, what's happening here, right? And so I think, to your point, there might be an opportunity in this moment to create some new alliances, to build some bigger tents. We don't all agree on everything, but maybe there's this common ground that this administration is just so offending in so many ways. So that's a kind of a reflection, right, on the first 100 days and how we move, how we take what we've learned, we've processed what's happened, and how we move forward. So I wanted to ask you, like, when you think about the work of Main Street Alliance, and you all give me a lot of hope, because we see in our work how many communities across the country that you really are tapped into and are working on behalf of. But what have you seen in the last 100 days when there's been a lot of harm? But what have you seen that might give one hope, or that might help folks that are tuning in tonight, people giving their evening to sit here and be on this town hall? yeah, like what do you want people to take with them? What gives you hope as we look forward?
I mean, I would say the wins that you've been able to secure, it's made a big difference. There's an organization called REAP here in Madison, where I live, and they provide extremely important services to minority business owners, to folks looking to learn how to farm and to get into the industry. And their grants were frozen for about a month. And as a result of the legal action that that happened, it got unfrozen. They were able to continue to provide those services. I think the story of all those victories and what the sort of distributed effects of those victories have been across the country is massively understated. And it's a story that we need to tell, because ultimately that's, when people, I had folks reach out to me because they saw that we were on the case. And those were folks who were impacted as well. And so I think it's really about how do we make sure that folks know that that is an option, but also, be in your community and making sure that folks are both hearing from the local constituents, but doing it in a very strategic way and making sure that they cannot hide from their folks. And so I would definitely encourage folks to go to our website. We are doing training, we're doing programming, we're helping to equip folks with media training as well. We've had a lot of folks out there. TJ Samanchin, who owns Wonder State Coffee, he's going to be in DC on Monday talking about tariffs. You have a lot of folks who are really speaking out and finding their voice. And it can be a little scary. It can be a little frightening to do that because you're worried about repercussions or consequences for doing so. Now is the time to put that to the side and speak out.
And I think one thing that you all provide and that we try to provide at Democracy Forward is it's a lot easier to do a hard thing when you're doing it together, which is this community that we're trying to make sure that we're creating and strengthening and broadening. And so if people do want to make their voices heard, you can work through groups like Main Street Alliance, groups like Democracy Forward, so many others that will help you do that in this time. So that's a great thing for us to take with us. And then you've said, get a megaphone. We can do that figuratively and literally. Some people on the call, I've seen them. They have their actual megaphones, but some figuratively and literally, to engage in the ways you can, whether that's sounds like an op-ed or a post on social media or showing up to time in your community that matters, calling your elected representatives. What do you say to people? I just want to, and any other way to engage, like, how do you get your news? I mean, that's the big thing, misinformation and disinformation. I don't know if you have any kind of advice on that. And then I've got one more question for you before you go.
I like Google Alerts as much as Google is a problematic company. They do some stuff as well, which is, for things you care about, you can set up an alert and get clips that are on that subject. And I think it's really helpful to give a more neutral view of the news. I think a lot of, honestly, the DC media, the Punch Bowls, the Axios, the Politicos of the world, I don't love how friendly they are to corporate America. And I feel like sometimes they are a little bit skewed because of that. So I would just find a good diet of news from various sources. And I would, I make an active effort to try to follow conservative thinkers and conservative outlets to see what they're saying and to think about it. Because there are, I think, thoughtful people on both sides. It might not seem like that all the time when you watch cable news. And that's actually one piece of advice I would have. Don't watch cable news unless Skye is on. So
you're kind. Well, we did not coordinate our remarks beforehand. And I will say, number one, when we reference Google Alerts, you go into google.com/alerts and you can put any topic. This is actually, I do this, Sean. I didn't even know that we had this in common. You can put any topic and you can get the alerts. And then the other thing is, I always say, make a plan. Like you make a plan to vote, make a plan on how you're going to get your information. It sounds like that's what you're recommending here. And so just the last thing I'm going to say, you're in Wisconsin. I just have to ask it, and we'll keep it light. But you're in Wisconsin. I think you all have already seen statewide. I mean, you've already, this isn't a big election year, but it is, it is, a year where you all had, I think, a special. There was a judicial election. There's going to be, you're already seeing, I think, was there a lot of engagement there? And just if that was that anything that kind of maybe gave some hope or talked a little bit about what the path might be moving forward, how we can, maybe align around issues and those types of things.
It's not every day that you get to be involved in humbling a billionaire, and it felt pretty good. Not going to lie. The state Supreme Court now is a constitutional body that believes in the state constitution and is executing it, and that's a good thing for our state. But throwing out blown up checks on stage to try to buy votes is not a way that elections should be run, and I'm very grateful that the voters of the state of Wisconsin agreed with me on that.
Well, Sean, thank you for taking time out of your evening to be with all of us and to tell us more about Main Street Alliance. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people kind of reaching out to engage with you all after this town hall, and I really appreciate you being with us. So I'm going to let you go, and we're going to have Attorney General Ellison come on. And I just want to say we could not have, hi, General Ellison.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just going to tell everybody, first of all, we could not have had a town hall at the 100-day mark without having a leader like Attorney General Ellison join us. So for those that are tuning in, you all are familiar, you follow legal work, but just to make sure we're aware of it, and AG Ellison, you can talk to people about it. But in many states, the state AGs, the attorney generals, they have a lot of tools at their disposal, and they can protect people in their state and sometimes people across the country from unlawful federal activity. And that's been really important these last 100 days. At Democracy Forward, we have been in court a lot, but I will tell you, the people of this country would not be seeing the types of results that we are seeing if it wasn't for a committed group of state AGs. And Attorney General Ellison is right there in court doing the work to protect our rights in this time. And tonight, he actually, I think, is on a break from a class that he's teaching to be here with all of us. And so we are so grateful that you're taking out time to join us. And you really have demonstrated such an unwavering commitment to ensuring that the law works for everyone, not just for the powerful few. So thank you for joining us on this break during your class. What is your message, Attorney General? What is your message to young people who find themselves confused and concerned about the chaos? I'm sure it would be great advice for those of us that aren't, as young as some of the folks tuning in, but maybe let's just start there.
First piece of advice is that the opponents of liberty and justice for all, and yes, I'm talking about the Trump administration, want you to feel anxious and overwhelmed. They call it flood the zone. You can look up Steve Bannon saying we're going to flood the zone, because we know that when we flood the zone and we throw stuff at them like that in a fast pace, it freaks people out, it immobilizes people, it demobilizes people. So what I want to say to young people is the last thing you want to do when somebody's trying to freak you out to immobilize you and tie you up is to be immobilized. Stay calm, work with others, be on calls just like this one, find solidarity, find support, and take action. The next thing is take it seriously. I know that we have the oldest democracy in the world. It's not perfect. Brother Keith is well aware that there's been racism, sexism, and a whole lot of other isms. But it's a pretty good democracy given where we've come from. And it's fragile. So take it seriously. Understand that there's nobody coming to fix it. We've got to fix it ourselves. And it will be attorneys general, but mostly we will not win this battle in a court of law. We will win it in a court of public opinion. We will win it when you decide that you're going to use the gifts and talents that you've been given to help educate, inspire, and organize.
That's inspiring and motivating, and what we need to hear tonight. Tell us about some of the incredible work. I get to see it firsthand every day, but can you just talk a little bit to people who are tuning in about how attorneys general from many states. And I just want to say this, I grew up in Texas, and our attorney general in Texas is not actually doing this. So we're very grateful, by the way. We're very
Ken Paxton is on the other side. He's part of the group trying to destroy American democracy, in my opinion.
Well, you're not going to get a debate from me on that. So I just want to say, because we got people tuning in from all over the country. So there are some folks that are tuning in that are lucky enough to live in states where they've got attorney generals fighting for them. There are other people tuning in that don't have that luxury, but that's why we're here at Democracy Forward. That's why you all are working in so many ways. So talk to us about the attorney generals that are committed to democracy in this country, that want to make sure people's rights are protected. Tell us a little bit about what you all have been doing the last 100 days for people that may not.
Let me get at it. So we've got about 23 AGs who are willing to stand up for the rule of law. And they're all Democrats. We're looking for more Republicans. They're welcome. We want them. And some of them are actually having private conversations with us.
That's great.
I'm sorry?
I said that's great that they're having private conversations.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so we want to encourage them to join us. But what are we doing? Well, on day one, he attacked birthright citizenship. We sued him on birthright citizenship, and we've blocked him so far. The case has not gone to trial yet, but we do have a preliminary injunction. Next, he tries to freeze $3 trillion in federally, congressionally appropriated money. We block him on that one. That money is flowing, although he keeps playing games, but it's for the most part flowing. Then he goes after National Institute of Health grants. We sue him on that. That money is flowing. Then he goes after federal employees. We sued him on that. And there's been a number of rehires, although it's not fast enough. And we have heard a lot of problems. We sued him on discharging workers at the United States USAID. And a lot of them have been called back, but then they've been told, okay, we fired you. You're not fired, but stay home. So we're trying to actually get them back to work. We've now done about 19 cases. We've sued on gender affirming care because they want to deprive states that help trans people deal with their medical issues. They want to say, we're going to deprive you of health care and financial funds if you provide the trans people with health care. We sued them over the trans issue. Youth are participating in extracurricular activities. We sued them on that just like last week. We have over 19 cases, and I actually approved 2 lawsuits today. So we are holding this guy accountable. We're being successful in court. Things have gone well. He's been losing left, right, and center in court, and the whole world knows about how he's now openly defying judges over immigration decisions. So the real question now is, can we hold this guy to obeying court orders? More and more. I mean, we're headed for a real bad showdown, folks. And let me just tell you, we're really going to need the public to show up and speak up when he starts openly defying the courts the way he has begun to. We'll see what happens, but that's where it's at.
And AG Ellison, over the weekend, I mean, ABC News had a poll that issued. I mean, the numbers are clear. I mean, the vast majority of the American public expect that we follow court orders in this country.
Right.
They're mad and worried about what the president is doing. They do not feel like they voted for this. And so thank you for emphasizing that and for all the work that you're doing. Okay, I just want to do 2 questions. One, I'm going to just preface to say, you've mentioned that you've got there's about 23, you said, AGs that are really working to promote the rule of law. You welcome more in. So if you guys are tuning in and you're in a state where your AG is not on these cases with AG Ellison, it sounds like you might have some letters to write and some calls to make about that, right? I mean, that I would think that. What do you want people that are tuning in? You said get engaged, understand that for the next 100 days. Where do you see this? Court orders is going to be a big thing to make sure the public is putting pressure that the president follow court orders. What is giving you hope in this moment? And kind of what do you want people tonight to take with them? Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, what's giving me hope is that the artists are making art to inspire us to stand up for our democracy. The people who are psychologists and social workers are organizing to help Americans deal with the excuse me guys, I'm sorry, deal with the worries and the stresses of being under this kind of threat. Young people are organizing, seniors are organizing, people are organizing. That gives me great hope.
Well, thank you for taking a break from your class to thank your class for us for joining us tonight, A.G. Ellison. Thank you for everything you're doing in court every day, and we'll call on you again. We'll see you soon. So for those of you that have tuned in, thank you so much for staying with us tonight. We're going to be staying in touch with you, creating more spaces like this as we move forward in the next 100 days. Tonight, I'm excited to announce that, and you're hearing it here first, and tomorrow you'll see it on all of our social media channels, and we'll announce it officially. But we mean what we say when we say that it is so important that we come together and create community in this time, that we create the conditions for courage in this time, which is being together. You've heard every speaker mention that tonight. We're so glad we see a lot of online activity in the chat tonight. Thank you so much. We are launching at Democracy Forward a program that you can find at democracyforward.org. I'm sure folks are going to put the link in the chat for you as we speak. But a program called Dinners for Democracy, or Coffee for Change. You don't have to have a dinner. You can do dinner or coffee or any kind of meetup to encourage and bring the fight for democracy to you wherever you are. Whether you are working a night shift and people have a practice of grabbing a bite to eat before or after, or doing a coffee break, whether you're in a community where you have your neighbors over to your backyard every now and then, whether you're in a community where you're just meeting people and you're going to meetups, we are providing kits that you can take the fight for people and democracy with you into your community through Dinners for Democracy or through Coffee for Change. We have free kits online that will launch tomorrow that you can download. It will show you how you could host and bring people together in whatever way you want. If you're a great cook, you can cook for them. If you're not, you can meet up at a restaurant. If you just want to order a pizza and everybody have a piece, whatever makes sense to come together and to work on ways that you, with your community, can engage in the work for people and democracy. We have heard from people across the country in the last 2 months. We have engaged with hundreds of thousands of people on town halls just like this one. And the common thing that we hear is that people want to be able to take action, and they want to do it together in this time in community. And so we are really going to be dedicating some of our resources at Democracy Forward to enabling and helping support you in your own communities to come together. So check out Dinners for Democracy and Coffee for Change. You can find it on the Democracy Forward website. We have a lot of resources that you can use to host your own that are free, that everybody can use. You can, if you want to get fancy, you can order a kit that for a fee where you will get some cool swag, but you don't have to do that to have one of these. And we're going to be checking in with you through these town halls. We may record videos for your dinner or even ask to come to your dinner, but it's going to be a way that we can all engage over the next 100 days to build and strengthen our community, to create the conditions for courage, and to ensure that in this moment, the American people get to decide the future of our country, not someone that is abusing the public trust and running roughshod over our rights. So thank you so much for engaging and coming tonight. Please follow our work at democracyforward.org. We are so grateful for Congressman Glenn Ivey, for Sean at Main Street Alliance, and of course for A.G. Ellison. Keep up with them as well. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next town hall.